Hello lovelies, how are you all doing today? I hope you're well. So I'm continuing from that last video when I was in the garden. I'm going to start my podding of my broad beans, and I thought we'd just have a little chat as I go, because you know, podding tradition is one of those things that you do it on the stoop with your family and friends, don't you? Like I said in that other video, I could have done this in the garden, except, just trying to get comfy. You know, there comes a point in every garden visit, I just want to get home, and that's the case today. So, home I came with my granny trolley full of beans. I'm so happy with this harvest, it's great. Now, I'd filmed at the same time, as you know, because you've seen that video by now. So the first thing I did when I got home was turned on the computer to get ready to basically upload that footage to the computer, edit, what have you. But in turning on the computer, I had a quick look on Planet Vegetaria, which is Richard and Paul's Facebook group. This wasn't how I was going to start this video, but it's come up, so I will. And they've managed to capture, so they live right in the top, well, they don't live, they have a house with an extension up in the attic. So they've got high up view. And they'd managed to see the tail end of, or was it them going, I don't know what time they filmed it, of the fly past for the Jubilee. For Queenie's 70 years. Amazing. The thing is with the, okay, so for anyone outside the UK, I mean, I'm not a royalist, but you can't help but follow the royal family or know about what they're up to. On special occasions such as, say, a wedding or a platinum jubilee, which frankly is astonishing, all of the royal family, they'll gather on that balcony outside Buck Palace, and there'll be a flyover, whatever it's called. And it's, you know, it's all the kind of, it's all the RAF stuff, it's all kind of military stuff, but whatever, a flyby. And you'll see, you know, there's always those pictures, those kind of classic pictures of the young princes and princesses kind of going, looking up at it all. So anyway, Richard and Paul, where they were, managed to capture some footage of it. And it must have been roughly the same time when I was in the garden doing my harvesting. Suddenly the sky started rumbling, and it was all the jellycopters. So all these massive military jellycopters. Such a noise, and it's such an incredible noise. And it kind of like, actually it's quite a haunting noise. But yeah, so we didn't see the jets and anything like that, but we did get the helicopters going over the allotment. But I was just watching Richard's footage now, and the last bit of it, and I think it's always the last bit of any flyover, is from the Red Arrows. So again, for anyone outside the UK, the Red Arrows are, I think, somehow they're kind of like, they're part of the nation's heart. Everybody in the UK, you know, who's old enough to walk and talk knows who the Red Arrows are. So they are a bunch of the elite fighter jet pilots. And I think they have women in there now as well. But anyway, historically it's always been men. They are like the kind of top gun of these pilots. The Red Arrows, their jumpsuit is bright red. It's unmistakable. When you see a red arrow, somehow the red arrow is walking in slow motion, and they've got the cool dark specs on. I don't know what brand of sunglasses they use. I don't know if it's the American brand that's in Top Gun, but yeah, they're kind of pretty, kind of, you know what? Ultimately, they're pretty sexy. So we have these images of these guys that walk in slow motion and maybe a slight toss of a fringe, and they fly in the most incredibly tight formation. It really is incredible. It's kind of scary, and always, just when they get over Buckingham Palace or wherever it is they're doing their display. I mean, these are all signed up people. They are on standby to go and fight if they have to. But what the Red Arrows do is they're kind of display team, and they're very charity and all that kind of thing. But the last thing I always do as they do their fly past, whatever you call it, is they release their smoke trails, always in red, white and blue, of course. So these historically guys, and like I said, I think some girls now, they are considered to be like, they're pretty cool, they're smooth, they're sexy. And like I was just saying then, they do a lot of charity work. And one of the charities that they love and go back to again and again and again is the hospital where I worked at Great Ormond Street. So Great Ormond Street is, for those who don't know, is a children's hospital in London, but it's a tertiary hospital, so it's kind of another level up from a regular hospital. It's where the sickest of the sick kids go. So at Great Ormond Street we treat kids from all over the country, not just London, and in fact all over the world. It's one of the world's premier children's hospitals. It has charity funding. There's a little connection with Peter Pan. J.M. Barrie, who wrote Peter Pan, bequeathed the rights to Peter Pan, all the profits from any reproduction of the book or the stage play, all profits would go to Great Ormond Street to support these incredibly sick kids. So, you know what, it's kind of, in a way, it's a very lucky hospital. It gets a lot of attention and therefore a lot of money, but obviously that goes into research that all other hospitals benefit from. But yeah, we at Great Ormond Street, we do tend to get, we get the West End stars coming in, we get Hollywood stars coming in. People want to come there, they want to spend time with the kids, they want to, they want to say thank you for the work that Great Ormond Street does. And quite often the Red Arrows come by. And when they come by, so for instance, never mind the Red Arrows for a second, what's his name? Tim Peake, the astronaut, the British astronaut. When he was in space, I don't know how this worked, good connection, 5 bars on the connection. He was doing sort of live face-to-face with Earth, and he chose a couple of kids at Great Ormond Street to do that with. It's like all educational, blah, 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 whatever it is. And then when he was back on Earth, he came to visit the hospital. And for example, all of us nurses were invited to put in a plea for why our patients should get to meet the astronaut. So I did that for one of my patients, and my patient was picked. I was so excited. It was such a funny day because, I'll get back to the Red Arrows, don't worry. It was such a funny day though, because so word got round that it was going to be my patient that was going to be visited. Now, the ward I worked on, it's an isolation ward. If you think about that old thing of, the boy in the bubble, so all of our kids are in a bubble. So he couldn't actually go in to meet my patient. We're very, very strict on who goes in and out. But each room has a glass side, has a glass wall, and there's an intercom, so you can speak to each other through the intercom and see each other through the glass. And it was just amazing to see my little patient's face just light up when he met Tim. And good on Tim for doing it. But also, in the morning, I heard that it was happening, so I went to see my patient and I said, "You've been picked. Start to think about some questions you want to ask him. Write some questions down." Oh boy, he wrote questions down. He wrote really difficult questions down. It was brilliant. So yeah, I was very fortunate to work at a hospital, and should I say, the kids are very fortunate that they get to meet some amazing people. But you know what? I say fortunate, but the kids are only there because they're in because they're in dire straits when they go there, and then hopefully they go home and they're not in dire straits. But yeah, they get to meet some amazing people. Now, back to the Red Arrows, yes, they were frequently at the hospital. And, you know, the nurses would all be aflutter because, you know, a lot of my nurse colleagues were quite a bit younger than me. You know, they're in their early 20s, they're single, they're looking to mingle. I mean, I wasn't bothered. I just like to meet these people because, you know, to say thank you for your time, what have you. But, yeah, every time the red arrows were in the hospital, suddenly every nurse in every ward was like, oh, I think it's my lunch break. I have to go wandering and look. And on one of the occasions that they were there, one of our offices where the nurse specialists work, so not in the ward but the office, it's on the far side of the hospital, and it's the oldest, well, it's one of the older parts of the hospital, and one of the parts of the hospital that hasn't been modernised much. It's in the process of it now. And I'd had to go over to that side of the hospital to go into the office. There must have been a reason that I didn't do it on the phone. I think maybe I was going to drop off or pick up a sample or some notes or something. But anyway, I'd gone to that old part of the building. And because it's old, the lifts are tiny. The lifts are like, you know, these kind of, I mean, it's less size than a little lavvy, like a tiny lavvy. Most of the lifts are massive. Of course, they're massive because you need to be able to get a bed in, plus the staff around the bed, what have you. But on that side of the hospital, no, they're really tiny. I think they have a limit of 6 people or something. So I'd gone and dropped off or picked up whatever it was I was doing over in that part of the hospital, and I was taking the lift. I think I had to go up 4 floors or whatever it was. Just as the doors were closing, someone said, hold the lift. So I kind of jammed my hand there. And the next thing I know, 6 red arrows get in the lift with me. Oh, my colleagues were so jealous later on when I told them. I mean, these boys, I'm not kidding, they must be 7'29" or something. I mean, I'm tall, but suddenly in this lift I felt tiny. These great big glamorous boys with their glamour, and they're in their jumpsuits, they're in their full regalia, being all kind of, you know, gorgeous. And I'm telling you now, I mean, I'm not one to swoon. I'm not one for getting involved in all that nonsense. Been there, done that. But I think there was a moment in that lift when I had to kind of lean against the wall and grab the little handrail a bit because I was going, oh. Anyway, so yeah, red arrows at hospital, red arrows today for the Jubilee fly past. I've missed the whole thing. I mean, it's probably on telly, it'll probably be on repeat. I can go on the computer later and look it up and see what all the brouhaha has been about. There are street parties going on all over, and most days over the weekend. There was something beginning to happen in the park that I walk through when I leave the allotment, but it was at the far end, and I just thought, my little legs don't want to carry me that far, so I didn't bother. Oopla. Anyway, I've got, you know what? I've got my little basket here, and I keep bits and pieces in it that I want to talk about, but my hands are now filthy, so I'm going to leave those for another day. But I was just thinking then about the walking back through the park. So the other day, oh, by the way, are you podding? Are you podding at the same time? I hope you are. This is definitely a listen to. Oh, this is a podcast. Did you see what I did? A podcast. Yeah, this is definitely a listen to rather than a watch, because I know that my head is down a lot, and that's quite rude. But in normal circumstances, it's rude to talk with one's head down, but I think this is a different circumstance. Yeah, I was coming home through the park the other day. It's in the afternoon, doesn't matter what time, and coming in at the... So, pardon me, I walk... The bit of park I walk through is one of the short sides rather than one of the long sides. So as I was beginning to do my walk out of the short side. At the far end, someone was coming in and was coming down the opposite end of the short side. And it was after we'd had a load of rain. So everything looked and smelt so fresh. The green was so bright. It was gorgeous. I'd gone down the plot for a specific reason. Wasn't to do any specific work. I think I might have been going to water the cold frame. Anyway, so I begin my little walk out through the park. And I see this chap coming in at the other end. And he's bent down. He's got a carrier bag with him. And he's picking dandelion leaves. So there's that whole little stretch at the side of the park that's not, it's not the centre of the park, which is a nice mown grass area where they do sports, you know, football, people sunbathe, what have you. It's on the side, they always leave it alone. It gets a bit wild, it's lovely. And it's absolutely chock full of dandelions. And I'd been looking at them one day thinking, I should make the most, I should pick a load, because I haven't got any leaf at home, leafy stuff growing at the moment. I was thinking, and then I thought, oh, I kind of, you know what, dogs and foxes. It's a park that's very much used by dog walkers. I used to use it myself as a dog walker when I had my Charlotte Bronte. And I don't know, it just gives me the heebie-jeebies about all the dogs pooing and peeing on it all. And even, yeah, you could wash it all, but even washing it, I just think, I don't know. But this guy was merrily picking away, and I could see he was picking the dandelion over anything else, because there's nettles there too, and it's not the nettles I use for nettle soup. They were actually from Auntie Teapot's garden, because they were free of, you know, animals. I do pick nettles from the park to use as mulch, but no, anyway, he was picking dandelions, and as I got closer to him, I was sort of, oh, that just squirted my eyeball. I was sort of smiling and thinking, there's someone after my own heart in the park, foraging, brilliant. And the guy was dressed super duper dapper. He had a waistcoat on, I think that's what you call in America a vest, you know, a waistcoat. Very, very trim. He got a little buttonhole in it. He looked absolutely splendid. It kind of was incongruous with foraging, but anyway, he was happily doing it. And as I got closer to him, as is my wont, I'll talk to anyone, I talk to everyone and anyone. I said something along the lines of, oh, the dandelion leaves, they are at their best at the moment, aren't they? They're so green and lush after all this rain. And he said, yeah, they're perfect. And I said, you know, good on you for foraging, that'll make a really great meal. And he said, oh, it's not for me, it's for Derek. Now, I immediately assumed he meant his partner. I thought his partner must be Derek. So I said, oh, well, I'm sure he will appreciate all the effort you're going to, and good on him for, you know, whatever. And he said, oh, it's all he will eat. And I was like, oh, thinking, you're not going to get all the nutrients and protein. I mean, dandelion leaves are great as a little add-on, but, you know, you need to eat something else. And within a second, he must have seen the expression on my face, because he said, oh, Derek's my tortoise. So it's dandelions for Derek, the tortoise. I mean, I had a flicker moment of thinking, do I step in and give some nutritional advice to say that a diet that consists only of dandelion leaves is probably not very nutritionally sound or rounded? But anyway, yeah, Derek was not the man's partner, Derek was the man's tortoise. Anyway, we had a little chat about animals and dandelions and diet and etc, etc. It was nice. It's just one of those kind of random little chatty things. Actually, that makes me think of another little random chatty thing. But you know what? I've got to just quickly do something. Bear with me. Sorry about that. My phone was vibrating and flashing like mad, and it was distracting me. And I try to ignore my phone when I'm in the middle of things, but I don't know, maybe this is a hangover from looking after Auntie Teapot. I always worry that it's something I need to attend to straight away. It's not. But anyway, that's done. Good. Yeah, so following on from Derek's dandelions, there was, oh la la, whenever it's a rainy day at the moment, obviously I get on with indoor things, but also it's my chance to, you know, I run out to the post office to post parcels. I do anything that's not the garden. And if I'm out anyway, if I've gone to the post office, I go, right, that's it. I'm going to go up and down the high street, pop into all my favourite shops, even if I don't need anything, just say a quick hello. It just keeps those connections, doesn't it? And one of them is one of the charity shops that I hardly ever buy anything from anymore because, excuse me, they've just gone so ridiculously expensive. And actually the manageress there, really lovely lady, she feels a bit hand-tied about it because she wants to charge one thing, but the charity's saying, no, you must charge X, Y, and Z. So, for instance, it's somewhere that I used to get quite a few books from. But now, oh my goodness, like, she used to try and charge like £1 a paperback, £2 a hardback, and that would be it. But now, I mean, the price of the books there, they're more than what I charge in my shop. And I want charities to get as much as they can, of course I do, but she was saying to me, you know, quite recently that they're starting to refuse donations of books because books don't sell. And the books don't sell because they're too expensive. You'd be better off, rather than selling one book in the day for £5, sell 50 books that day for £1. Anyway, I'd popped in to see her to see if there was any fabric. I'm just always on the lookout for fabric, and just chatting, so I was standing at the counter, and I'd left, at that point I'd come out to the high street because the rain had abated for a minute, and then it all started kicking off again. So while I was in the shop, suddenly really heavy shower, and I was joking because she knows I garden, and I said, bang goes the garlic harvest, because I was just assuming that with all the rain we've had, it would be, everything would have rotted. But yeah, I said, oh, bang goes the garlic harvest. And then another lady just piped up, her customer, and she said, oh, is it time to plant garlic? And I said, oh, no, I'm going to be harvesting it today, not planting it. She said, but don't I need to plant it now because it takes a year? So the long and the short of it was, this complete stranger to me, we end up having this chat about growing garlic. She's never grown it before, so I was telling her all my ins and outs and the best tips I could possibly give. And it was just a really nice conversation. And she had a really lovely outfit on. And I told her she had a dress on that was blue but had a print to it. It's quite, any of you who know the company Sea Salt, it had quite a sea salt vibe to it, or a white stuff vibe to it. And then she had on a gorgeous hand knitted cardigan that was in a mustard yellow. It's one of my favourite combinations. I'm not a huge fan of yellow, but I like mustard yellow. It looked absolutely gorgeous. Anyway, then it came time for me to go on my way, and she said, it was so serendipitous that you came in today. Thank you for the garlic chat. And I thought, you know what? It's just lovely to be open to having a conversation with a complete stranger. So I'd gone from there, and then I went up to the refill shop. So, you know, I got my washing up liquid refilled. And I handed over my credit note. Now, on the credit note, you get the amount that you're owed, but it also says the produce that you brought in to trade. So on it said champagne rhubarb, brackets, organic. They can't label it as organic because I'm not certified organic, but they can tell their customers. So I went in, and the refill is right at the back, but the washing up liquid refill is right at the bottom. and you have to pump it and pump it and pump it. It's always really awkward. So I thought, you know what, stuff it. So I said to the lass who was behind the counter, I said, have you got a chair or a stool that I can sit on? She went, yeah. She went, oh, do you want me to do it for you? I said, no, I can do it for myself, but I just need a perch because it's so low. So she went and got me a chair, thank you. So I sat and I pumped and I pumped and I pumped and I pumped. I refilled my bottle. Then I went to the counter to pay for it, and she rang it in, and I said, oh, I've got a credit note. So I passed the credit note over to her, and she read it, and she went, oh, was that your rhubarb? And I said, yeah. She went, oh my goodness, it's gorgeous. She said, my mum had the lot, and she's combined it with some strawberry, and so she's made this jam, strawberry and rhubarb jam, and it's lovely, da-da-da. And I was like, oh, I'm so pleased. It's really nice to hear about where it's ended up and that it's been appreciated. It's lovely. Anyway, we got chatting, you know, as you do. There weren't any customers waiting. I wasn't holding up a queue or anything. We were chatting away, and I was saying how I just met this lovely lady in the charity shop, and we were talking about garlic and what have you. And then, what was her name? I don't know if she pronounced it Cheyenne. Anyway, shout out to Cheyenne if you're watching. She said, oh, it's such a lovely neighbourhood, isn't it? And I said, yes. And then I started the whole thing about I need to move house. I don't want to leave the area because everyone's so friendly. And then she said, and you know, everyone from outside London says how Londoners are horrible and no one talks to each other. I was like, yes, hallelujah. Exactly that. So we were having a bit of a... Oh, that one's gone flying. We were having a bit of a bitch. I like, sorry, using that word. Nice use of the word, not horrible. But we were having a bit of a moan, shall we say, about people from outside London who say how horrible London is and no one talks to each other. And that's because the people who visit London for the day and go to Oxford Street with all the other tourists, none of them are talking to each other. They're all the tourists. You come somewhere local, like my hood, my little village, you're going to get talked to. But yeah, so we were chatting on, and I was saying how, you know, everyone here chats. And then she said, you know, Northerners always talk about how chatty and friendly they are, but actually we're the friendliest. And it made me realise, I mean, I do slip into my pronunciation of things slips depending on who I'm with. But I said, actually, I'm Northern. And she was like, what? Are you? And that's me going, are you? I said, yeah, I'm a Northerner, I'm a transplant. And she said, well, yeah, you Northerners are quite friendly too. Silly. It's just silly little things, little moments of, you know, nothingness, but they make such a difference to one's day. It's all about human contact and human interaction, isn't it? And you could go through life having a miserable face on you and going about life in a grumpy way and going into a shop and wanting to be served quickly and get out and missing that opportunity to just have a moment with another human being that makes you smile. Or, you know, that thing of walking through the park and meeting Derek's dad. Maybe that is the Northerner in me. Maybe that is the Northerner in me, that I go through a park and I talk to someone. I don't know. I don't think there is a north-south thing to do with that. I think it's just what you are as a person, as an individual, isn't it? I chat to strangers and have nice little encounters. Right, goodness me, yakking on. Actually, I've got my little wet cloth here because I know that the further down into this bag I go, I'm going to get to the broad beans that have got a bit of black fly on and it'll get yucky. But what I can do, get the worst off. Oh, I've got the perfect tea towel for today. This is another gift. This is my Be a Kind Human Being tea towel. How perfect. I'm going to set this aside for a second. I've got nowhere to put it. Because I do want to say, I've got a couple of beautiful cards I want to share. This is so lovely. Look at this. Oh, isn't that lovely? It's called Beehives and Sunflowers. This is a beautiful card from Sarah. Sarah, I loved your note inside it. She just kind of told me a bit about herself. I won't relay any of that because it's private. But it was so beautiful to read. I was really touched, and it's so lovely hearing other people's experiences, their kind of transition into a different kind of life, how they make things work, where they find their joy. It's gorgeous. Thank you so much, lovely. Loved it, really loved it. That needs to go on the bureau for a few weeks. But then I also had, is this Christine? Please let me say it. Yes, Christine. This is so cute as well, isn't it? It's another one that's a collage, and it's called Squirrels in Parkland. Love it. Lovely to hear from Christine too. But Christine also sent me some fabric. Fabric addict alert. So there's this little lovely bundle of, what is it, 1, 2, 3, 4, it's 5 fat quarters. It's all, I'll show you this properly when I start to use it, but it's all sea salt. It's sea salt fabric. Actually, there is one I want to show you. So they're all in kind of blues. So we've got some flowers and then some sailing ships. I'm going to save these two till last. And then this one, I need to open it up a bit for you to see. You're not going to be able to see. I will show you this in more detail when I use it. I'm sorry, I'm just flashing it up now. But this is like a sort of a rocky, seaside, stormy coastline. Oh, it's Port Leven. Is that? Oh, it's probably pronounced differently, isn't it, in Cornish? Port Leven. Anyway. But these two, this one is a fabric that looks almost too far away. Hang on, let me see if I'm going to put it on the floor. This one is sort of like a script, I mean as in writing, and every now and again there's a little bit of character in there, like the sailing boat, a candle, a book. Beautiful, and it sort of goes perfectly well with this one. Bookshelves. Gorgeous. So there were those 5 fat quarters, gorgeous, but then also this, I think it's almost, is it a metre? This is another sea salt. I love this. Can you see? It's clucking hens. Hens clucking. Beautiful, Christine, thank you so much. They are gorgeous. And literally, any of you who work with fabric will know this feeling, or maybe if you work in wool, yarns or whatever, you'll know that feeling when you get a little bundle of new yarns or bundle of new fabric. Immediately your brain starts firing off all sorts of ideas. Mine has been. And what I thought I would do, this is a long-term project, because I had that lovely blue mushroom fabric that was supposed to be for an apron. Someone sent it to me for an apron, but I'm not going to make it into an apron because I've got an apron. I don't use a lot of blue in my work, like for the shop. Well, I do actually, don't I, for the lavender bags and stuff. But this is the other thing that happens is people give me fabric, I make it into something, I sell it, and it's gone. And I end up with, I don't have any of it. I've got photos, because obviously I upload the photos to my shop, so I've got the memory from photos. But I thought what I'd like to start is a bit of a patchwork. Now, I do have my own patchwork quilt that has been in progress for 30 years. I just never have time. It's English paper piecing. This is something about giving up the garden. I might have time to do my own sewing. So there's that. But what I thought with a lot of these fabrics that have been given to me, there's a lot of blues and a lot of whites. So I thought, what about, it doesn't need to be big, not that small, but maybe this sort of size of cushion, is to make a sort of memory cushion, a memory patchwork. Now normally one would think of a memory cushion as being things like Grandad's shirts cut up, stitched together to make a cushion for the baby that never got to meet Grandad. I've done a few of those for friends. But I thought, yeah, how about a hat? I was thinking about a bed quilt, first of all, and then I was thinking machine quilt it, Vivi, as in machine piece it, rather than hand piece it, because it takes forever. So I did think about that, but then I thought, a blue quilt, I'm not sure. But at least with a cushion, I could start with a cushion size in mind. And if I get really into it, I can always expand it to make even a couch throw, a knee quilt, which is like half the size of a bed quilt. But yeah, I've got all sorts of ideas, and I think that's what I'd like to do with a lot of these blue fabrics and whites. Who sent me, oh, I've forgotten who you are now, I'm so sorry. Someone sent me, oh, who was it? I'm so sorry, but it's a white background and it's too pale for a lavender bag because the lavender shows through. But it's a lovely Liberty fabric. It's got dodos on it. It's tiny, tiny print. That would be another perfect thing to use. So I thought, let me go through my stash of gifted fabrics, some inherited ones. So I've got a bit of Auntie Teapot, a bit of Grandma, and make a little patchwork cushion from all those bits, and it'll be blues and whites. And then I thought also, it's down there. Do you remember that ribbon I showed you the other day? I'd had it on my dungarees as a 4 or 5 year old or whatever, that I'm going to sell for the shop. I thought I could keep a really small piece of it. If I do 10 centimetre patches, I could just have one small patch that's pieces of ribbon, significant ribbons. That could be one of the patches. And one of the patches could actually be all of my favourite old buttons in my button collection. So I think that's a really nice idea for odds and ends of fabrics that we might not otherwise use, but fabrics that have got a special meaning to us. And likewise the ribbons and buttons. So I'm pretty sure that's a project I'm going to do next year, and I think it'd be a nice one to do together. If I do it as English paper piecing, then we can do it together right from the beginning, right from sort of cutting the fabric, cutting the squares, basting all the fabric, etc., selecting pieces, how we can work pieces together. And then as it progresses, it won't be a case of demonstrating how to, but each time I pick it up to sew a little bit more of it, it can just be a chatting session as I'm sewing. So I can sew, you can sew, and we can chat. I think that'd be really nice. I'd really like to do that. I think that's going to happen next year when I don't have a garden. For now, I've still got all these beans to pod. So far, lovely. As I mentioned in the garden, I've left some of the smaller ones to grow a bit more. When I harvest those in a few days, I'm going to have those to make my first. These are all going to go in the freezer. I'm just going to get them in the freezer so I know they're done. I don't have time for cooking today, but I will do a harvest to make my gorgeous broad bean hummus on toast in a couple of days. Right, okay, I think I've been yapping on for long enough. So, it's quite an eclectic yap, wasn't it? Oh, those red arrows. Honestly, I know I'm not normally either starstruck or I don't normally gush at handsome blokes. I just think, yeah, you just smell the human being. But there is something about those red arrow boys. Right, we all need to go off now and have little dreams, don't we? I think next time I see you, I think we'll be back to the garden. Oh yeah, June tour. It's getting late for the June tour, but let's do it anyway. A few changes of plans. I can talk you through those in the garden. And in the meantime, yeah, I need to just crack on with this lot. So I will see you all really soon, I hope. In the meantime, happy podding and harvesting to all of you. Happy fabric stash going through. Yeah, I think that's going to be a really nice project to do together next year. I can't wait for all of that. I have to wait though. So in the meantime, please look after yourselves. Be happy whenever you can. Smile at strangers, because you never know, it might lead to a conversation, and that's always lovely. So until the next one, Cheerio, lovelies.